And you said something interesting, and here's what it is, talking about creating characters. A little bit like if I were a sculptor working in stone, you can theorize and think, I think I'll hold my chisel like this, maybe I'll use the red hammer. No, what it comes down to is bang, hammer hits stone.
It does come down to that moment where the hammer hits the stone. You have to be technically proficient. You have to be...
That means you got to know your...
You've got to know your words, you've got to respect the fellow actor, you've got to really respond to the guidance of the director. Even to a certain extent, if it's helpful, you need to know what lens they're using, where the camera is in your peripheral vision. But I think the emotional fuel from me only comes when the director says action. There's nothing I can do to prepare for that.
Until you hear action, probably you have not locked into your character. You have a sense, you have a lot of things, but until you do it, is that what you're saying?
It is what I'm saying, yeah. It's a little bit like a trapeze artist, more metaphors, I'm sorry, but it's a little bit like a trapeze artist who's hanging on to one trapeze and then hurls him or herself through the air and grabs onto another trapeze. But it's the moment where the artist is spinning through the air that the audience are in love with.
Holding their breath.
And holding their breath for. So the director saying action is like letting go of the trapeze rather than holding on. So I try to go blank and let go, and then get all the information from the fellow actor, the environment, the situation, the corner that the character has found himself in.
Yeah. There is nothing similar between what I do and what actors do, but no matter how much you think about an interview, no matter how much I know about you, something happens at the table that creates its own dynamic.
Yes.
That makes it work or not work, makes it better than it might be or less than it might be.
Yeah, and that's the interaction between those two energies that's constantly changing. So however fixed you think it's going to be.
Right.
I don't audition. I don't do my stuff in front of the mirror. I don't do my stuff in the bathroom. I don't do my stuff by myself. I know my lines, but I don't have any preconception of what gestures are going to happen or how I'm going to react until the other person gives me their energy, and then I can... It's like tennis.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. That's the way this is, like tennis, because in terms of what you will do depends on where I hit the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And where you hit the ball determines where you will go.
Yes.
In anticipation of the next shot.
And it's a lovely image because it also is confined by that square, which is called the tennis court, with that wonderful net in between us, if you like. So that's what I mean by technique. That's the technique. Those are the rules of the game.
Right.
So the limits of the tennis court are, I will say the lines that the writer's written. That I won't stray out of. I won't stray out of the tennis court.
Right.
I'll say those lines, and I'm confident that the other chap will say his or her lines. But those are the rules of the game. But anything within that is wonderful and spontaneous, messy, clumsy, all sorts of influences coming in and out.
What's the best advice you ever got about acting?
Probably from...
Or the best instruction you ever got even?
Gosh, I've worked with some amazing people.
Has it mainly come from directors and fellow actors or from teachers?
From fellow actors by watching them. For example, I could watch Tony Hopkins until I fall out of my chair.
And what do you see? Because it reminds me of artists, painters.
Yeah.
They really go and study what other painters do. I've said this on this program before. They look at the strokes. They look at the color.
Yes.
What's it you do when you watch Hopkins, for example?
I admire his rapidity of thought. He actually speaks his dialogue very quickly. There is a great musical variety in his voice, so that whilst the dialogue is coming out rapidly, he will allow the audience to focus on the argument by hitting certain words with great accuracy. So it's not flat. And he's very still, so that rather than be unstill, it is one gesture focused on the argument of the actor, the predicament of the character, the dilemma, the passion, just by delicately touching one word or doing one gesture. His economy, it's like Spencer Tracy, his economy, his stillness, his honesty, and basically, I guess he's just very, very intelligent.
Yeah, exactly. But they used to say about Tracy is it looked like he wasn't acting.
Same with Anthony. Yeah.
Bill Nye once said to me that what you have to do with a line is make it seem as if you just thought of it.
Yes.
Which is the idea of spontaneity.
Yes.
You know.
And that's the process that we're enjoying now. But it's very, very hard when you have a script to enjoy the spontaneity that we're enjoying now, because I don't know how my sentence is going to end. As I speak, I don't know how this is going to end.
Nor do I know what I'm going to say.
But with dialogue, you have to pretend, suppress the fact that you know how this speech is going to end. It's quite difficult.
So you can, deep down, create the authenticity of having heard it for the first time and responding to it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a secret to memorizing lines? I mean, did all actors have, or...?
I just, bang, bang. It's just inertia. Just steep myself in it and keep the repetition. Sometimes I record on a little cassette player and listen to it as I fall asleep. And it helps also if you have some idea of your character's rhythms, then you can start to apply the rhythms while you're learning. So that also begins to... For me, it's a slow process of owning the character, is learning it line by line. I'm sure other actors have other approaches, but for me, I feel I'm occupying and owning that character with each line I know and with each line I learn. But I'm very fortunate to have worked with great writers. It makes an enormous difference.
So they've given you text that is amazing.
And it's individuated so that my text can only come from my character, and then I see the other character's lines, and the extraordinary thing is that the writer's given the other character an entirely different rhythm and choice of vocabulary. Sometimes if you blot out the names, it could all be one person speaking, and that's not great writing.
Yeah.
But great writing is when they've taken the trouble to have... Harold Pinter does this. Each character has their own quirky, eccentric rhythm.
Yeah. It's often, and in fact, Pinter, who we did an hour with on this program, early in January, is famous for pauses, which he doesn't even see as a pause. He just thinks I'm writing natural dialogue, and people breathe, stop, pause.
Yeah, Shakespeare did it too.
He did.
Yeah. When he wrote in verse, the character had a different rhythm. The iambic pentameter, ta-tan, 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 ta-tan. Sometimes with rhyming couplets to push the argument even further. And then he'd go into prose, which was much more naturalistic and relaxed. But then with his verse, he would put the most important word at the end of the line. To be or not to be, that is the question. So the most important thought of Hamlet's at that time is not life or death, it's the question.
Yeah.
It's the quest. It's
life or death.
Is the question.
Is the question.
Yeah. So that under good guidance, you drive towards that word.